When asked about where Mamdani stands on the phrase globalize the Intifada, Mamdani said the distance between what some intend and what others hear is a bridge that is too far, and it is why he now discourages its use. I've thought about this quite a lot. For some New Yorkers, it's a phrase that refers to civil disobedience and protest and calls to end the occupation of Palestinian land. I was sitting with a rabbi not too long ago who told me the same phrase is heard very differently by her, and it's referred it's heard as a reference to bus bombings in Haifa, restaurant attacks in Jerusalem, and it engenders a fear in her and others the possibility of those very attacks coming home here in New York City. Mamdani said his movement is one for justice and equality and would bridge the gap between all New Yorkers by focusing on what has caused so much anguish in this moment. What offends so many in our city, this horror that one is one that is subsidized by our country, he said. I heard not just about a desire for cheaper groceries and a cost of living that was easier to navigate, but for an end to our tax dollars going to the killing of children. Mamdani said of concerns share with him over the Israel-Hamas war. Okay. On principle, I feel like he shouldn't back down because he never even said globalize the Intifada. He was just asked how he feels about the phrase, and he said he holds space for different meanings for different people and so on, but at the same time, this isn't exactly the kind of denunciation that makes it seem like he's selling out and turncoating, you know? Because the problem is that, like, all the people who have said that Mamdani wants to globalize the Intifada are still going to say that, right? Hakeem Jeffries has said that he hasn't endorsed Mamdani because he doesn't know him that well, and because he's concerned about statements like globalize the Intifada, which of course Mamdani never said, but they're still going to say that, right? If you show weakness, they'll start to pressure you and everything. It's globalize the Intifada, which he never said, and next it's going to be, when you say, you know, BDS, to a lot of rabbis in New York City, you know, that actually speaks to them of the anti-Semitic practice of not attending Jewish-owned stores or something, some bullshit like that. You can't capitulate to the disingenuity. This whole thing has been disingenuous from the get-go, right? It would be one thing if Mamdani was like yelling from the rooftops, globalize the Intifada, which, by the way, from my perspective, is a relatively spicy slogan, okay? I think there are much better ways to advocate for Palestinian liberation than that phrase. That phrase seems to me like it's mostly like it's very controversial, it's very incisive, it makes you feel very woke when you say it. I don't think it's actually like, yeah, it's pretty LARPy. I don't think it's actually like doing much good. If he was screaming it from the rooftops and somebody was like, hey, can you dial it down? That's not the most effective way to advocate for your cause. And he said, oh, okay, that'd be one thing. It is scary to the normies. It does frighten the hoes. That is true. That is true. It does frighten the hoes. But it was disingenuous from the get-go. He wasn't using this language. Now he discourages its use. Like, okay, whatever. Did this come out after he went to DC? After his primary win? Is that the context in which this is being discussed? Because I did see that when he won the primary and went to DC. By the way, when Eric Adams won the Democratic primary, he went and met with the president and the Speaker of the House. When Mamdani wins, he doesn't speak to any high-level White House officials or congressional officials. No high-level Democrats. And apparently Bernie Sanders, who, you know, agrees with Mamdani on quite a bit, Sanders, who is Jewish, really urged Mamdani to be cautious about how he approaches talking about Israel. That's fair, yeah, of course. Both are critics of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's handling of its war in Gaza. Ahead of the trip, Mamdani told business leaders in New York he would discourage the use of the phrase globalize the Intifada. Okay, so this was like right before he went over then. Mamdani, who has not used the phrase himself, thank you, CNN, for surprisingly not disingenuous framing there, has said he believes the phrase to be a rallying cry for Palestinian human rights and refused to condemn its use when asked during its primary campaign. Yeah, because it's weird to ask a person to condemn language they themselves haven't used. Like, that's just weird, you know? It would be one thing if Mamdani was at a pro-Palestinian rally and everyone else was chanting, you know, globalize the Intifada or whatever, but you're just tossing the most controversial sounding slogans at him. You're just pitching the ones that'll scare the hoes the most to see how he, you know, how he bats. It's racist, kind of. Yeah, it's a little bit racist to go to the Muslim guy and be like, all right, here's a list of 372 slogans that people have said are anti-Semitic. Okay, how do you feel about Zionist-occupied government? Mamdani's like, I've never said that. I disavow. And they're like, okay, let's go through 971 more. It's like, dude, what if we stuck to the language that he uses? What if we stuck to the language that, you know, is like directly around him? Please rate them. But you really, You think that globalize the Intifada is better than Zionist-occupied government. Can you give us a 30-minute explanation for your position on this, Mamdani? It's unwinnable. Sanders told Mamdani he had to do a better job explaining his criticism is not anti-Semitic, and not to let himself seem like he's minimizing the fear of Jews. I just don't think he's done this. But Bernie Sanders has spent a lifetime capitulating to the Democratic Party, so it's possible that at this point and at his age, you know, that he's just not... You gotta fight the Democrats too, man. It's not like they're being genuine when they throw this shit at you. They know they're lying.
Donnie, and on top of that, Republicans are certainly trying to cast him as a liability for Democrats. Do you see him as such?
We're going to have a very robust discussion in the event that we are able to proceed tomorrow, but at some point shortly thereafter, if we are not, about quality of life issues important to the people
Minority
that
House Leader, by the way,
represent in the 8th Congressional District in New York, related to affordability, safety, and the ability to make sure that New York City remains a place that working families, middle-class folks, and all those who aspire to be part of the middle class can continue to call home. At the same period of time, I do look forward to having a conversation with our Democratic nominee about the importance of everyone being on the same page in terms of taking back control of the House of Representatives.
That's great. Thank you. No endorsement. Thank you. Thank you. They met today, by the way, and he still hasn't endorsed him. Jeffries will not endorse Zohran Mamdani. It's not about fears of anti-Semitism or whatever else, okay? It's because he's a dog of the establishment, he's a dog of AIPAC, he's a dog of corporate media, and Mamdani is not. And that's it. That's it. That's the only reason why. And unfortunately, Bernie, like, you're not going to fight back against this. You're not going to fight back against this by, like, playing into the game and taking seriously all the bullshit id-poll criticisms they throw forward. He's been asked so many times, over and over and over again, are you endorsing? Are you endorsing? It's always some bullshit answer. God, I hate looking at him. Following his trip to Washington.
Anybody that's staying out at this point instead of endorsing this incredible dynamic leader is missing an opportunity.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Here's what I was thinking of. This is from 3 days ago.
Your meeting with Zohran Mamdani, you have not endorsed him yet. What do you say to people who say, why are you not endorsing the guy that won the Democratic primary in a contested election in your backyard?
Well, I look forward to sitting down and talking to him. I didn't get involved in that primary election, and I don't know him well. We had a very good conversation.
Don't know him well. Didn't get involved in the primary election of the mayor of New York City, even though that's the state I represent. Haven't really talked to him. And then, wow, they met, they talked, and what a surprise, he's still not endorsing him.
The day after the primary, we agreed to meet, and so I'm looking forward to having that discussion on Friday.
Nothing happened. They had the discussion, no endorsement. Hate these people, dude. They're just as much our enemies as the Republicans. If you're in a bar fight and one dude is punching the shit out of you, punching your face over and over, and there's a second guy who's not punching you, but he's just pinning your wrists down to the ground so you can't fight back, those people are both equally your enemy. They're both doing the same thing. They have taken different tasks, but they are united in the same objective, whether or not they know it. Even if the person who's holding your wrist down is trying to be well-intentioned with it. Oh, don't fight back. It'll make it worse. It doesn't matter. You know exactly what's going on here. Anyway, to a real human.
Just learning skills from him, communication skills. It was not about whether we're supporting him or not.
I think he's a very personable, smart young man. And I hope we're not going to have a lot of circular firing squads.
House Democrats there after meeting with the newly minted Democratic nominee for mayor of New York. So
I really hope Mamdani inspires some of these people to start pushing back against Schumer and Jeffries, man.
Mamdani, the self-declared Democratic socialist who topped Andrew Cuomo last month.
Yes,
for a Democratic Party that's struggling to find its footing after losing power completely in November. Mamdani, one of the most high-profile and polarizing figures to appear on the national stage. Our next guest knows a thing or two about electing Democrats, and he writes this about Mamdani recently, quote, America doesn't necessarily go the way of the Big Apple. The New Jersey gubernatorial primary and the lack of one in Virginia will prove more informative for Democrats' fortunes in 2026 and 20.
Yeah, don't look at New York City, okay? New York City is famously not representative of the rest of the country, you know? It's kind of like a monoculture ethno-state. It doesn't really, it's not really like a broad base, right? Now, the New Jersey gubernatorial primary.
28. And Rahm Emanuel joins us now. He's the former mayor of Chicago. He served as President Obama's chief of staff. He was recently ambassador to Japan in the Biden administration. He also is a CNN senior political and global affairs analyst. And like I said,
Rahm Emanuel is a massive piece of shit. Yeah, obviously, look at his face. As always, evil people make themselves known to you, okay? The devil will reveal the mark of the beast. Before they invented phrenology, they thought it would be numbers, okay? It's actually facial structure. Can't you tell?
Worked on electing Democrats to the House way back in the day. Sir, I'm very happy to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I want to start with where kind of Democrats are, big picture, because some of these new poll numbers are really tough for Democrats. The approval ratings are really low, and it's someone like Zohran Mamdani that is front and center. Do you think the party embracing someone like him in this national way is a recipe for success?
No, I think that the Democrats, when they're currently more unpopular than they ever have been in the entire history of the party, should keep doing what they're doing now, and definitely shouldn't stand behind the champion of every value they pretend to have, who is much more popular than they are.
Well, let me, first of all, you cited a poll that CNN put out today. It shows a very energized Democratic Party, way over energized than the Republican Party. And it also shows that independents are breaking almost 2-to-1 for the Democrats.
What poll?
So I think that's a very telling sign. I do think the New Jersey and Virginia governor's races are more indicative both about the candidate we recruited, their message, and what it will mean to 2020.
Candidate we recruited, by the way. Take note of the language. They're specifically pushing back against the fact that they don't control Mamdani. They want like stooges in these positions, so there's no real pushback against the establishment line.
2026 and 2028, both women are moderates who come out of the national security kind of pool of candidates that we.
Oh, that's great. We love that. Moderates. Oh, but they're women because we have to use id poll to mask for our ideological weaknesses, you know?
Have in the past.
What,
and I think
Slotkin?
that's where you're going to see, I think, something that gives you a floodlight into the future. And second, as it relates to the...
he said women weird, because to people like him, a person being a woman is like a tick that you get to sign off next to their name to convince voters to vote for them. They don't believe in anything. It's all just id poll. It's just cynical id poll to them, you know?
Democratic nominee for mayor in New York City. As I think I said, as it relates to national elections, I'm more interested in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan than I am the Upper West Side of Manhattan. But you'd be foolish not to see or pay attention to his focus on the cost of living issues. As somebody who said the American dream is unaffordable and that is unacceptable to us, that is where our focus should be. It used to be when you and I were growing up. If you worked hard, you could get ahead. Today, if you work hard, you run in place and you go nowhere fast and just break a sweat. He focused on something. Now, I don't agree with his
broken clock? Not broken clock. Every politician since time immemorial has promised to lower prices. The difference with Mamdani is that he's explained how he'll do it, and it involves challenging the landlords. That's the reason why he's different. But for Democrats, they never deliver on these promises. The most you get is like a fiddly bureaucrat, like a little tax break, a tax rebate. It doesn't amount to anything substantial. But, you know, a politician saying we have a cost of living crisis, that's every politician, every state, all the time. Nobody would say otherwise.
Grocery stores, city-run grocery stores, you know, city government has a tough time running trains on time, let alone a grocery store or free buses. But his critique of the problem...
Why could a government not run free buses? What about the buses being free makes them more difficult to run? It's a bus. It's pretty simple. You drive a large car along a route and you stop every couple blocks. So is that really beyond us? Oh, the government can't handle stuff like that. What? Like, listen, in the same breath, he says, the cost of living is too high, things are unaffordable, but also cheaper groceries, free bus rides, ridiculous. Fantasies cooked up by a socialist lunatic. Let's focus on the real world here, where the bus costs $3.25, groceries continue to raise in price by 8% every year, except for when inflation spikes, and then it goes up by 22%. And then we can start talking about real solutions to economic inequality, like a $3,000 tax break for a couple's first child.
He's not wrong. His solution to that analysis is where I have a disagreement. But as it relates to politics, New Jersey and Virginia are far more significant and far more revealing about what the future beholds if we run the right type of candidate with the right type of message.
So let's dig into those poll numbers because, as you mentioned, Democratic enthusiasm among Democratic voters.
Don't free buses basically pay for themselves? Providing free or extremely subsidized public transportation pays for itself because the ability for people to move around freely makes jobs and patronizing businesses much more easy and accessible. It makes bus lines not like an uncomfortable little commute option for people who don't have a car, but instead a real viable form of public transit. More people use them to get around, so areas near bus stops get a lot more traffic, both for shopping and like for people who want to work there. It accelerates the economy. It's one of the reasons we don't have toll roads everywhere. We make roads free at the point of service because it would really, imagine how much harder it would be to get around and take advantage of the opportunities in your city if every time you reached a crosswalk you had like to pay a little toll. The only reason we subsidize cars and roads but not buses and trains is because we have a car-centric society. There's no reason it has to be that way.
To get to the polls is in fact off the charts in our poll. I think we can put up that screen with those numbers. However, the party itself, right? And so there it is. 72% of Democrats strongly motivated to vote in the midterms.
Oh, that's the poll. That was the poll Rahm Emanuel was citing as evidence that Democrats don't actually hate their own party, that they're motivated to vote in the midterms. Have you considered they're motivated to vote in the midterms because they want to vote your ass out?
50% of the Republicans are strongly motivated to vote. But even Democrats are saying they're really unhappy with the Democratic Party. And that is different than what we saw in 2018, right? The same period after Trump was elected the first time, where Democrats were extremely motivated, but they were also fine with the party. What does that tell you?
Well, look, let me say one thing. When you have
I'm paid to be a stooge for corporate interests. I'm not here to answer questions, you stupid bitch.
Party control both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, which you have here. You have lessons of history from 1994, where the Democrats lost the House and the Senate. You have lessons from 2006. You have lessons from 2010 for President Obama. You have 2018 for President Trump. So there's a physics to this. Energized opposition, independents break 2-1 for the opposition, and dejected incumbent party voters. Your poll shows exactly that paradigm is playing out at this moment. Now, the brand of the party, not good. Energized voters, that's more important. Every election...
Listen, it doesn't matter that the party is more unpopular than it ever has been in the entire history of the party. Literally the entire over a century-long history of the Democratic Party. For as long as polling has been done, it has never been this unpopular. But that doesn't matter, okay? What matters is that I'm choosing to interpret high voter turnout energy as a sign of support for the party, despite all evidence to the contrary.
Special and primary since 2024 has shown an incredible energy by the Democratic base voters. Independents dissatisfied with Republicans, and Republican voters actually also dissatisfied with their Republicans.
Hey man, these people, the Democratic Party is a machine to turn reasonable socialists into Brianna Joy Gray, man. It is so difficult to not like look at this and not see the contempt that they hold you in and go like, it, I'm completely, like I'm allowing cynicism to take over, like the symbiote over Spider-Man's suit, you know? I'm going to, like, my new political position is, my new pronouns are / Democrats. I'm not voting in any election. If Trump wins a third term, it'll be funny. That's my position, and we deserve it because, you know, we allowed the Democrats to metastasize to the point where a Trump could win a third term. That's why, like, it's so difficult. But you got to remember, for one, you have to temper your own emotions, but you also have to remember these Democrats, Rahm Emanuel, Hakeem Jeffries, whatever, they hate you more than the Republicans do. The Republicans think that your opposition is amusing, but for the most part, they just think it's a fun game to get away with as much as they can. The Democrats despise you. They despise you more than you could imagine. They are so contemptuous. Not all of them, but key players like Rahm Emanuel. You know what I saw recently? A big protege of Schumer, Anthony Weiner, the guy who got ousted from Congress because of a sexting scandal, then went on to have another sexting scandal, then went on to have found to have sexted a minor. That Anthony Weiner, he did a Adam Friedland show which I've watched through. And one thing which I recommend you watch, I recommend you watch that specific episode with Mr. Weiner and Mr. Friedland, because seeing a disgraced former protege of Schumer, it's really, really obvious one thing, how much contempt he holds for the audience of the show. Not because it's Friedland's audience, but because it's an audience of voters. It's so, like, who has watched that episode and agrees with me? Mr. Weiner held the viewers of that episode in obscene contempt, like the poison dripping from his mouth with every word. He thought little of their intelligence, of their motivations, of their interests. And I don't think it was because he's a disgraced, former, Democratic upper, former protege of Schumer. I think it's because he was taught that by Schumer. I think Schumer would be like that too. I think Schumer would be like that if he was cut out of the political game and was just doing a podcast circuit. They hate you more than you could imagine. They despise you. Rahm Emanuel despises you, okay? You could have a beer, you could go play games with somebody like Hannity. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. It's a job to him. He might hate you in like a broad abstract way, but interpersonally, he's just here to be evil and have fun, okay? Hannity, Tucker, Trump. This isn't the case with all Republicans, by the way. I don't think you could have a beer with Stephen Miller, with Carolyn Levitt, maybe with Lutnick. But with people like Rahm Emanuel, and pardon me for holding them to a higher standard, okay? You could not with these people. They hate you. They hate you, and they hate Mamdani. They hate Mamdani because he's a representation of the fact that you can get ahead in this game without turning into a hollow, soulless void.
Two other points I would make that I think are relevant in this case. One of the things that your poll also showed is that nobody wants an untethered, unhinged Donald Trump, which is why the message should be about a rubber stamp Republican Congress, because they want a check.
That's great. Okay, that's enough. No, I can't stand over and over and over again listening to political, being talked down to and provided political advice from people who just keep losing. Like over and over, they just keep embarrassingly losing, like the most unpopular the party's ever been. And I have to sit here and listen to these people condescend to me. No idea what they're doing. Or, well, more likely they know what they're doing isn't effective, but it doesn't matter. Has he been drinking? No, Rahm Emanuel just talks like that. Blind faith to checks and balances is gone. Yerp. But it doesn't matter because they don't care. They don't care. Gotta get worse before it gets better.